Cyber of June. I'm Stephen Ridgway. An exploit has been released for an ArcServe UDP authentication bypass vulnerability. So ArcServe is well, they do data protection in various forms. One of their tools is Unified Data Protection, otherwise known as UDP, just to be confusing for any of you who work with networks. It's backup software. It does, though, have a vulnerability that can let attackers bypass authentication and gain admin privileges directly. So the vulnerability is tracked as CVE 2023-26258. The fix is to upgrade to UDP 9.1, and that patch or that upgrade has been available since the 27th of June, so a day and a half ago, something like that. The bug's been known for 4 months, but they've been working on the patch for it. I believe the vulnerability is found in UDP from version 7.0 up to 9.0, and so the recommendation is upgrade ASAP if you are using this. And given the fact that ArcServe is, sort of one of those top tier solutions that comes with a top tier price, I suspect if you've actually gone to the trouble of using ArcServe for this purpose, you have data which you definitely do not want to be accessible by the wrong people. So one to think about, one to watch out for, and definitely have a look. If you need to upgrade ASAP. So a little bit of good news. Microsoft has released a new version of Sysmon. So if you don't know, Sysmon or Systems Monitor, it's a free Microsoft sysinternals tool that collects information about activities on Windows machines. It's extensively used for monitoring things like Windows event logs and so on and so forth. A really good tool, a really great way of pulling together information about what's going on a Windows device, and can also be easily ingested. The info can be easily ingested into pretty much all SIEM tools. So yeah, a great way to get some visibility onto endpoints. However, they've released version 15, and they have made a couple of changes to it, both of which I rather like. It is now a protected process, which basically means it is now harder to mess with it if you're an attacker. But even more interesting, it has now added the ability to identify when executable files are created. That's kind of cool, because you would not expect executable files to be being created on a device other than when the administrators of those devices are pushing stuff out or updating stuff. So to be able to pull in information about the fact that executables were created is kind of cool. So the usual path of download some bit of malware that by the time it's unpacked itself and done this, that, and the other, eventually you end up with some or other executable, generally, not always, some or other executable being created or written out to disk or wherever it would be. So I haven't tested this yet, but it sounds really good. The article in Bleeping Computer gives a pretty good overview, including some of the methods by which it actually detects new executable files. So well worth a read if you are looking after Microsoft estate, and definitely, I would also definitely recommend using Sysmon if you're not already using Sysmon in order to get really good visibility. So that's a little bit of good news. Another little bit of interesting news is that there is more information coming out about the extent of criminal activity that has been interrupted when the authorities in Europe managed to bring down the EncroChat system. So they've now got lots of information about who was using it and what they were using it for. So EncroChat, in case it's not the forefront of your mind, was a purportedly unbreakably secure phone system based around mobile phones, extensively used by criminal underworld, as it was supposed to be completely unbreakable. The devices, the handsets were specifically made. All sorts of features in there. Encryption, of course, but lots of features that if you were up to nefarious deeds, you would want these features in order to be not detected. So some interesting stats coming out of this. There have been over 6,500 arrests made, and nearly 200 of those are what the police are describing as high value targets. They've seized over 700 million euros in cash, and frozen a further 150 million euros of assets and bank accounts. 30 million pills have been seized. Over 100 tons of cocaine, 160 tons of cannabis, over 3 tons of heroin, nearly 1,000 vehicles, 270 estates or houses seized, nearly 1,000 weapons, and going on for 22,000 rounds of ammunition, and 68 explosives, 83 boats, and 40 planes. So it is quite. This was an absolutely fantastic breakthrough for law enforcement. Europol. They also have broken down the EncroChat by crime area, the EncroChat usage by crime area. So, for example, 33% or so was drug trafficking, 34%, 35% organized crime, 14% money laundering, nearly 6.5% firearms trafficking, but slightly scarily, 11.5% were was organising or executing murders. So, good job it's been taken down. Well done to Europol for that, and it makes interesting reading if you have been following that particular story. And then finally, from me today, again in the category of I didn't even imagine you could do that. Drones are potentially vulnerable to weaknesses in electromagnetic fault injection attacks. So it is potentially possible for a threat actor to execute arbitrary code on a drone by sending electromagnetic waves to it. I mean, it's just this stuff never ceases to amaze me. So I'm going to put this down also in the category of it probably doesn't matter to most people most of the time. However, if you were, for example, using drones in war zones, for example, I'm just trying to think of where this might matter. Yeah, I suppose if you're using drones for observations or drones to deliver, as we've seen, some very interesting kind of homemade devices that drop bombs from drones in the war in Ukraine, you probably don't want other people to be able to easily intercept and take control of that drone. So maybe it does have it certainly does have real world implications, I guess, in very specific circumstances. For the rest of us, I don't think this is going to be a particular problem. I don't even own a drone, so it won't really matter to me. Anyway, they're recommending that the manufacturers build in hardware controls to mitigate the effects of EMFI attacks. So if you lose control of your drone, it may well be that somebody has been firing electromagnetic waves at it and installed their own control software on it or something like that. Anyway, that's enough from me for today. I hope you have a great Thursday, and I will speak to you all again tomorrow morning.